can Donald Trump's surrogates violate the gag order if they're attacking the judge or attacking witnesses on Trump's behalf? So we're going to explore exactly this question here. Okay, Glenn, we've seen, a steady stream of Donald Trump's surrogates attacking witnesses in place of Trump, who himself is bound by the gag order. So does this violate the gag order?
The answer is maybe. The answer, Brian, actually could be yes, but with a great big qualifier. What is that qualifier? Well, the gag order expressly says Donald Trump shall make no statement about a witness or a juror or others, and he shall direct no one to make a statement. So the devil's in the details. Did he direct? That would be the burden of proof for the prosecutors to satisfy if they wanted to ask Judge Merchan to once again, for, the 11th time perhaps, hold Donald Trump in criminal contempt of court for violating the gag order. They would have to prove, they'd have to have evidence that showed Donald Trump directed his surrogates to make those statements. And based on who the surrogates were that I saw streaming to the camera, a real motley crew of congressional Republicans, I think it very unlikely that if any of them were asked, even under oath, did Donald Trump direct you to attack the witnesses? Do you really think they would say yes, even if he did? So it certainly violates the spirit of the gag order, but I don't think Donald Trump will catch an 11th criminal contempt count for folks like, MAGA Mike Johnson and Byron Donalds and Tommy Tuberville and some of these other stone-cold Republican clowns stepping to the mic and saying all the nonsense they were saying. And let me just say this, Brian. What a difference half a century makes. It was 50 years ago, 1974, when the Republican congressional leadership, including Senator Barry Goldwater, the Senate Republican leader Hugh Scott, and the House GOP leader, Republican John Rhodes, marched to the White House and told Richard Nixon, basically, you're done. Resign or you will be impeached by your own party. And the very next day, Richard Nixon resigned. What a difference 50 years makes, because what we saw today, and today perhaps should be written in the history books at, the day the corruption of the Republican Party was complete, because MAGA Mike Johnson and the others I named and a few more basically, marched to a courtroom in Manhattan, stood outside that courtroom and tried to kill the rule of law by propping up a criminal former president of the United States. So I think, today the Republican Party has definitively shown itself to be the pro-crime party.
Yeah, all the while beating their chest as the law and order party, and Donald Trump beating his chest as the law and order president. You've got Mike Johnson, who claims himself to be the human embodiment of the Bible, and yet he marched his way on up to New York so that he could basically run cover for a guy who is being prosecuted right now for falsifying business records to hide hush money payouts for an affair he had while his infant son was at home with his wife. So a whole branding debacle. You're really seeing behind the curtain in terms of exactly who these people are. Glenn, we know, based on this trial alone, that Donald Trump won't even send emails that he thinks are incriminating because, his own words, and I'm paraphrasing here, but that's how people get prosecuted. So does that further lend itself to the fact that he knows he's smart enough at least, or savvy enough at least, to know not to tell any of his associates, any of these Republican colleagues, to go up to the courthouse and do what he can't by virtue of violating the gag order, say what he can't say? Does it just make it less likely that we'll actually see any type of proof, because he's admitted in this very trial that he wouldn't ever give this kind of a paper trail?
Yeah, I don't think you'll see a paper trail. And frankly, I don't think he personally had to tell the Tubervilles and the Mike Johnson
they just know
to do his bidding. They know, or they've talked to other surrogates of his, maybe even family members. I don't know that for a fact, but it could be anybody else who put this word out. So no, we're not going to see any email traffic of it. But, Donald Trump can be reckless when he's talking one-on-one with people. We've heard some testimony from Michael Cohen and others about that. But, I'm glad you brought up that reference to emails, because I actually think the one bit of testimony during this trial up in New York that defines Donald Trump more so than any other testimony we heard is when Michael Cohen testified that Donald Trump told him, I don't put things in emails because I've seen too many people go down when prosecutors use those emails against them. That's Donald Trump announcing who he is, who he's always been, and why he does what he does. He knows that he's involved in criminal activity, but he doesn't want to put it in writing. Why? Because, in his words, I've seen too many other people go down, be held accountable for their crimes when prosecutors use their emails against him. If ever there was one piece of information that defined who Donald Trump is, that's it.
Glenn, what does it say that Trump needs to outsource his dirty work to his lapdogs in the Republican Party, whether it's him who directed them or whether it's just them who understood that that's what they needed to do?
You know, what it says is really more about the lapdogs, that they are consumed with their own power, their own position, and their own office. They're willing to hitch their wagon to a criminal former president of the United States. I want to say it one more time, which is the exact opposite of the Republican leadership in 1974, when they would not prop up a criminal president of their own party. And what it says about them is they don't care one whit about their constituents. They don't care one whit about, showing any patriotism. And ultimately, they don't care one whit about the survival of American democracy. All they care about is holding on to that coveted office. And, that is about as sad a state of affairs for a major political party, as you can envision.
Talk about the significance of why the gag order was imposed in the first place. Talk about what these people are actually doing, the practical effect of what they're doing by virtue of going and attacking the witnesses or attacking the family of the judge. Because there is a reason that this gag order was imposed. It wasn't just because, the evil communist Marxist Democrats wanted to silence Donald Trump. There's a reason that it was imposed.
They're endangering witnesses. They're endangering jurors. They're endangering family members of judges and prosecutors. And they are undermining the due administration of justice. All of those are the reasons why judges, not just Judge Merchan, but others, have put gag orders in place. It's to protect and preserve the due administration of justice. So a case can be tried and decided only on the facts and the evidence that are presented in court, not on, extraneous circumstances like, is a witness going to be afraid to testify or testify fully, truthfully, and candidly because of the threats that have been leveled by Donald Trump and his supporters or his mouthpieces, right? Will jurors perhaps hesitate before voting guilty because they feel unsafe with respect to some of what has gone on in the run-up to and during the trial? So, the stakes couldn't be higher. You need to have reliability in the process, and that's the only thing that makes the outcome of a trial legitimate. If the process has been fair, reliable, and untainted by a defendant or his supporters and mouthpieces who are determined to see the case decided on something other than the evidence.
Glenn, can you talk about the implications here, given the fact that all of the prosecutors' witnesses have testified now? I mean, they've just announced that Michael Cohen would be their final witness. And so is it moot at this point, given the fact that there are no more witnesses to come, that these people are violating the gag order on Trump's behalf?